Welcome into Philadelphia Eagles Now by Chat Sports. Chase Senior here with you on the rundown for today's show. We have a new Haason Reddick update as he continues to hold out of training camp with the New York Jets in search of a new deal. He has now requested a trade, and Howie Roseman has the opportunity to do the funniest thing ever. We're going to talk about that here on today's show. But first, let's pop up today's poll question. I genuinely want to hear from you down in the comment section. Would you welcome Haason Reddick back on the Philadelphia Eagles? Type Y for yes or N for no. His 2 seasons with Philadelphia, very impressive. 16 sacks year 1, 11 sacks year 2. And then he was accused of kind of chasing sacks and playing outside of the scheme. He wanted a new deal. Eagles didn't want to pay him. That's why they traded him away. But do you have ill feelings toward Haason Reddick, or would you want him back on the Birds? Let me know right now. So Adam Schefter breaking the news on Monday. Edge rusher Haason Reddick now has officially requested a trade from the New York Jets. And of course, this is the most New York Jets thing ever because they acquire a player. Now they might have to deal him away. They don't want to negotiate with any player on a new contract extension unless that player is at training camp, and Haason Reddick refuses to report the training camp. So right now, a little bit of a standoff between New York, between Haason Reddick. They had huge hopes for Reddick. That's why they partially let Bryce Huff go to the Philadelphia Eagles, and they want Haason Reddick to be their starting edge rusher because over the last 5 years, he's been one of the best sack artists in the National Football League, and he would be joining an absolutely loaded defense for the Jets that I think is going to be one of the top units in the NFL, and they gave up a conditional third-round pick, which can become a second to the Eagles, and now he might not play for that organization. And I alluded to this just moments ago. Howie Roseman truly has the opportunity to do the funniest thing ever. And while it's a hilarious thought to bring back Haason Reddick onto the Eagles after trading him away, I think there's close to a 0% chance that it actually happens for a couple of reasons, and let's run through those reasons right now. The most obvious reason, I think the Eagles' plans spoke loudly this offseason. They bulked up at the edge rusher spot. They took Bryce Huff away from the New York Jets coming off that 10-sack campaign. They restructured the contract of Josh Sweat. They played in the preseason opener against the Ravens, Nolan Smith, deep into the third quarter. They drafted Jalix Hunt very early as he was much higher on their draft board compared to other teams in the National Football League. They brought back Brandon Graham for a 15th and final season. And I think generally, this Eagles defensive line has a lot of promise. Jordan Davis has to take a leap, but the flashes have been there. Jalen Carter has all-pro potential. He just can't wear down toward the end of the year. Milton Williams is one of the better rotational defensive tackles in the game, and he said that Moro Ajomo, his backup, is due for a breakout campaign. So I think this Eagles defensive line is in a really good spot, which is why I don't think they'll have interest in reacquiring Haason Reddick, and plus, there would be egg on the face of the Jets if the Eagles did bring him back after trading him away to New York. But this Reddick timeline is wild, right? Eagles trade him away for a third-round pick, conditional third, it can become a second, and then Philadelphia signed Bryce Huff away from the Jets, who last year was arguably their best defensive end. So the Jets, in turn, lose their top edge to Philadelphia. Then they trade for Reddick with Philadelphia, and now they might lose Reddick as well. He has been a training camp holdout, refusing to report until he gets a new deal, and now he demands that trade. Now here's the latest on Reddick here and how Howie has kind of flexed his muscles. Eagles didn't want to pay him. That's why they traded him away. They did not give him a contract extension for a reason, partially because Reddick's asking price is way too high. And Ian Rapoport of the NFL Network reporting on Monday that no team except the New York Jets wanted the trade for him, which is why Howie waited so long to trade Reddick away. And right now, there's really no market for Reddick services. A lot of teams are content. They've invested a lot of money at the edge rusher spot, and Reddick right now is kind of overestimating his market. He's in the final year of a 3-year, $45 million contract. The issue with him is that this year is non-guaranteed. He has missed 21 days of training camp. That is $50,000 per day in fines. He was also hit with a game check for missing the preseason opener for New York. So he has totaled nearly $2 million in fines. And the Jets came out with the statement and they said, look, he can demand a trade all he wants. We are not going to trade him away, so the standoff continues. Here's that New York Jets statement. We have informed Hasson that we will not trade him, that he is expected to be here with his teammates, and that he will continue to be fined per the CBA if he does not report. Since the trade discussions back in March, we have been clear, direct, and consistent with our position. Our focus will remain on the guys that we have here as we prepare for the regular season. And that statement coming from Joe Douglas, the current Jets general manager, who used to be the right-hand man to Howie Roseman after he came to Philadelphia after a few years in that Baltimore Ravens front office. And this, of course, obviously, a messy situation that is peak Jets. They made the trade for Aaron Rodgers last year. He tore his Achilles a couple of plays into the season. It was a disastrous campaign for New York. That offense was a joke. And then they make the trade for Haason Reddick, and now he might not even play for that team. They lose an edge to Philadelphia. They trade for an edge with Philadelphia. They don't pay Haason Reddick, and now he demands a trade. Why not just pay up? You made the trade for Haason Reddick to begin with. You clearly wanted him on your team. Why not give him a contract extension? More on this coming up here just around the corner. But first, if you want daily Eagles coverage, make sure you hit that subscribe button. As you can see here with these figures to my right, we are closing in on 78,000 subscribers. This is the largest independently run Eagles channel right here on YouTube. And my goal, every time that I step in front of this camera and I put on this headset, hopping on the mic, is to give you informative, entertaining, insightful, thought-provoking Eagles coverage that involves you, the Bird Gang. Our sponsor for today's show is Prize Picks, by the way. Daily fantasy sports made easy. Pick 2 or more players, choose more or less on their projected stat lines, and you can win up to 25 times your money. Get a $100 deposit match at prizepicks.com/CLNS. Prize Picks is America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 5 million active members. It's the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Unlike other apps on Prize Picks, it's just you against the number. So all you do is pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. Get in on the daily action with your friends and become part of the Prize Picks community today. You can now win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks with as little as 4 correct picks. Our football selections here, Calvin Ridley, more than 899.5 receiving yards for Tennessee. I really like that number. It's definitely going to require Will Levis taking a leap, but they invested in Calvin Ridley, and he should be able to have more than 900 yards, and I like the player. T. Higgins, contract year, franchise tagged, more than 899.5 receiving yards as well. And then Cooper Kupp, more than 974.5 receiving yards. He should easily surpass that as long as he can stay healthy. So daily fantasy sports made easy. Pick 2 or more players. Choose more or less. Download the Prize Picks app today. Use the code CLNS for a first deposit match up to $100. That's code CLNS on Prize Picks for a deposit of up to $100. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy. As for the Eagles' cap situation, let's give you an update on that front. Philadelphia's sitting pretty right now because that's how Howie Roseman rolls. The Birds with $25.2 million in cap space right now. That is 11th in the NFL. As you look ahead, Philadelphia, $6.4 million in cap space in 2025. That is 23rd in the National Football League. The good news is salary cap will continue to increase. More cap space in turn, and cap space can be rolled over. Whatever the Eagles don't use this year, they can roll it over to next year, and as we've seen, Howie Roseman is very savvy with how he manipulates the cap, massages the cap, and exercises these salary cap gymnastics. The issue with Haason Reddick and reacquiring him is that he wants a new deal, though. And he could be asking for about $25 million per season per reports. You look at a player like Danielle Hunter, similar in age to Haason Reddick. similar production. In fact, they both have 27 sacks over the last 2 years. With the Houston Texans, he got a 2-year, $49 million contract, but I think Danielle Hunter is a better all-around player who's a little bit better against the run than Reddick, who's more of that pass rush specialist. Haason Reddick, too, wasn't in Philadelphia long, but he certainly made his mark with this team. And Reuben Frank earlier this offseason put together some thoughts on NBC Sports Philadelphia, looking at some Eagles who were with Philadelphia for a short stint, but made their impacts felt. He threw out a name like Terrell Owens, who wasn't in Philadelphia long enough, and a player like Haason Reddick. 16 sacks, 11 sacks. That production over 2 years was terrific for Reddick in Philadelphia. You look at the numbers over the last 2, those sack numbers, excellent. And over the last 4 or 5 years, Haason Reddick has been one of the best pass rushers in the National Football League. Part of the reason, though, that Philadelphia probably moved on, they saw the decrease in production from 2023 to 2022. Now, the pressure numbers very similar. In 2023, 67 pressures. In 2022, 68. Hurries and hits, 41-13 last year as compared to 40-10 2 years ago. But the sack numbers did go down by 5. He wasn't as highly graded by Pro Football Focus, 75.2 last year, 81.1 en route to the Super Bowl. Pass rush grade, 75.2 in 2023, 90 as he finished 4th in Defensive Player of the Year voting in 2022. So sometimes it's good as a business to get ahead of a player's decline. And I think the Eagles saw that maybe he's declining a little bit, getting a little bit older. And in turn, they got a little bit cheaper with Bryce Huff. So would you welcome Reddick back on the Eagles? Let's revisit that poll question here. Y for yes, N for no. As always, thanks for supporting the program, and go Birds.